Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chiller Chat. This is somewhat of a somber episode as we do a movie review on Star Wars: The Last Jedi. There will be spoilers in this episode. If you haven't seen the movie, I strongly recommend you don't, but if you do, you might want to skip this episode for now because we will be talking about it, of course, being a movie review. So let me kind of set the picture here. Okay, little Brian Hogue as an 8-9-year-old little child going to the Drake Theater in Oil City, Pennsylvania, seeing Star Wars in the summer of 1977. I was amazed at this movie, and I've been a huge fan ever since. Star Wars to me was more than just a movie. It was an experience. It really was. I mean, I was a huge fan. I had all the comics, the books, the toys, the model kits, everything. You know, a huge fan. Okay, just can't stress that enough. All right, it wasn't a complicated movie. It was just simple. Didn't have to be. It was good versus evil, almost on a mythical level. We saw this on the screen before us, and we were all in love with Star Wars. Now, fast forward to 2017. Now, that all ended on, well, for me, for that little Brian that grew up, that all ended on Saturday, December 16th, 2017. I was at the Grove City, Pennsylvania Theater, and we were standing in line, my family and I, and we were standing in line, and they were releasing everybody who had just seen the movie before letting us in. Everybody walked out. Now, I kid you not. I say this without exaggeration. Everybody walked out with their heads looking down at the floor. No, not one smile. Hundreds of people coming out. I didn't see one smile. If there were any, I didn't see it. And that kind of was a red flag. Like, what's going on here? I go in the theater, totally knew nothing about any of the movie. I knew nothing. I walked out over 2 hours later, looking down at the floor with a blank stare on my face. And I can tell you that this was probably the only time that at least I remember that I actually walked out of a movie theater feeling sick in my stomach. And that's how I'm going to start this show out, just letting you know, yes, I was very disappointed in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. So when we come back, I'll be chatting with Nate Ragon, and we'll be reviewing Star Wars: The Last Jedi. So I'll tell you what I found disappointing, and I know Nate will share his thoughts as well. So see you in about a minute. Watch Chiller Night Theater and Chiller Chat every Saturday night on Stream TV. Chiller programming airs every Saturday night beginning at 9 p.m. through 3 a.m. Watch Jack Shadow host classic and not so classic horror and science fiction films of yesteryear on Chiller Night Theater. Then Brian Hogue hosts Chiller Chat, the weekly talk show that discusses paranormal activities, horror and science fiction movies, and mysteries beyond. If you like horror, science fiction, and the paranormal, Stream TV is the channel to watch every Saturday night. Go to streammedia.tv, that's streammedia.tv, to connect to Stream TV's Roku channel. Or watch Chiller programming online on Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel, or at chillernighttheater.com. That's chillernighttheater.com. chillernighttheater.com. Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween, a young reader's book written by Jennifer Sadler, is the first of the Chiller Night series featuring Jack Shadow. 5 teenagers head out for a night of trick-or-treating, but lose themselves in a dimension of horror. Now they race against the clock to save their souls from the spirit of Halloween himself, Jack Shadow. This All Hallows Eve fantasy is a thrill a minute, and the first in a new series of Halloween fun and fright. Take a step back in time through the veils between the living and the dead with Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween. Cover art by Rick Whitlow. Illustrations by Scott Lubin. Chiller Night, The Spirit of Halloween is available to purchase on Amazon.com or get your copy at chillernighttheater.com. That's chillernighttheater.com. chillernighttheater.com. And we are back, and we're back here with Nate Ragon. Nate, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Nate, you know, the burden rests on our shoulders here. We have to discuss Star Wars, The Last Jedi. We are here doing our first official movie review on Chiller Chat, to the extent to which we are. And what were your initial thoughts on Star Wars, The Last Jedi?
My initial thoughts after I left the theater was kind of just like numbness. Like, I wasn't really sure how I felt. I certainly knew I didn't love it. I wasn't sure if I hated it, but I think it was more just the disbelief of, did I really just watch a Star Wars movie that I didn't like at all?
Right. Yeah, I sat there, and like I said to the viewers watching here, there will be spoilers, and so you can either turn this off now or whatever you have to do, or if you want to hear them, that's up to you. But we warned you. I walked out of there. I was absolutely. I felt sick in my stomach, and that's a strong. I know that's a strong description for a movie, especially a fantasy movie. A space science fiction fantasy movie. But I gotta say, that's how I felt. I can't help it. I mean, that's how I felt as a grown man walking out of the theater after seeing Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And it didn't feel like I just watched a Star Wars movie. And I think the thing that really made me sick in my stomach was the treatment of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you went with... Who did you go with when you saw it?
I took my son Channing.
Okay.
Who is 7.
Okay. What did he like it?
Well, that's kind of part of my review here. That I'm going to use like his reaction as part of the review, which I think this could very well speak even more volumes than what we possibly think.
Yeah.
He was introduced to Star Wars, like the originals, by me, obviously, several years ago. He really liked them. When the new one came out, when The Force Awakens came out,
yes,
took him to see that, and it was probably, like, in his mind, it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. It was probably a similar reaction to what you had as a kid when you saw the original Star Wars.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
He wanted all the toys, everything. Star Wars. I was like, wow, this is exactly what it was like for kids in 1977. This is awesome.
Right.
When it came out on home video, we got the Blu-ray. He watched it easily 20 or 30 times. I mean, he was in love with that movie. When I took him to see The Last Jedi, he was so excited, and right off the bat, I could tell it didn't capture him right away like The Force Awakens did. But as the movie went on, he kept asking, is it over yet? How much longer is this? Is it going to be over? And he just really he didn't really have any thoughts about it afterwards. I tried to talk to him about it, and he just kind of was like, yeah, I liked it. And that was it. He didn't care. He didn't want to watch it again. He didn't want to get any toys. In fact, someone bought him some of the toys from The Last Jedi for his birthday that year, and they're still sitting in his room in the package. He didn't even care to open them.
Wow.
And I think that, there was nothing there that captured his imagination the way even The Force Awakens was able to. So,
right. Yeah,
I think that speaks volumes for what kind of film they made versus what kind of film they probably thought they were trying to make.
Yeah, well, I think that the big problem, other than the disaster of what they did with Luke Skywalker, such an iconic hero for decades. This character has been a huge hero, and to degrade him and make him like he was in that movie, I thought was Disney's fatal error when it comes to Star Wars, because I don't think that even if they make a good movie after this, you can't undo what we saw. And that's my big problem with it, is nobody pulled the plug on that idea. Mark Hamill, the actor who plays Luke Skywalker, he tried. He made several attempts to talk to the writer and director Rian Johnson, and tried to get them to change their direction with that character, knowing that the fans were not going to like that. Now, I understand that there are a few people who say that they like it or they didn't mind the movie, but you can just see, that there is a huge division with the fans on this movie. There's no denying it. If you go on the internet, anywhere on the internet, you can find this information. Go on YouTube, look up the Last Jedi rants, which this is going to be one of them. And with good reason. I think it was horrible storytelling, first of all. I mean, the storytelling was bad. Even if Luke Skywalker hadn't been part of that story, it was just a bad story. I mean, what do you think of that?
I agree. I was not really interested in it, like, from the get-go, and I couldn't figure out why at first. I think, like, again, that was part of where throughout the whole movie I just kept thinking to myself, like, what is going on here? Like, is it me? Is there some, and slowly I started to see it was like, no, it's the movie. Like, I'm not being captured by this in any way, by the storytelling, by the writing, by the acting, by what's happening on screen, what they're doing with the characters. Like, and I'm okay with a movie that is a continuation of another film that has, of a series that has, bringing back characters, and to kind of do little things that maybe, like, throw you off at first, like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, the epic ending to The Force Awakens, nobody would have ever imagined that Episode 8 would start with Luke taking the lightsaber and throwing it behind him and walking away. Like, nope, no one ever expected that. And when that moment happened, at first I was like, oh, what? But then in my head I was like, oh, okay, they're just doing that to kind of be like, hey, everyone thought he was going to, this was going to be this big epic moment. But really, he's just going to take the lightsaber and throw it and, like, storm off like a grump. Okay, cool, I can deal with that. They threw us off. But then it continued, and it continued, and it continued. And I was like, wow, this is literally how he's going to be the entire movie.
Yeah, now I
did not like that at all.
I think that's symbolic of what Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy did with the whole Star Wars movie and storyline up until then. Basically just taking something, a symbol that should have held at least some degree of reverence, and tossed it over their shoulder just because, well, you didn't see that coming, we got you there. And I see no good reason to have ruined a character who for 30 some years we wanted to see back on the screen again. And I think that the way they did that, and the way that they just shoved Luke's face in the dirt and made him into such a weak character at the expense, mind you, of a new character, Rey, was a horrible mistake. I think that, to use a major character, classic character, and use him as a plot device to promote a new character who is not that interesting, was horrible. It was amateurish. Why bring that character back to begin with, just to ruin him like that? It was embarrassing. And I sat there horrified by watching horrified as much as I can be watching a movie, watching this character being degraded like that. It was hard to watch, I think heroes are important, and that hero, when I was growing up, was a big deal in my life. And
Right.
I don't care if you're 5 or 50. I think you always, it's important to have heroes, someone or something, some idea to look up to. And when they took that character and they did what they did to him, made him into a hermit, a coward who would rather tuck his tail and run away and let his sister do the fighting than the Luke Skywalker that we know,
Right.
So, and it's not.
And,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the humor, I consider it the lack. I would rather say the lack thereof humor, but the humor that they tried to instill into the movie.
Yes.
Anytime it happened, it was done in such, like, the Star Wars films have always had jokes, and you have a character like Han Solo who wisecrack jokes, and that fit the character, it fit the story, and that was basically the extent of. I felt that set boundaries in the original trilogy. Like, okay, this is the humor of the Star Wars universe. Is you're going to have a character like Han Solo who's going to wisecrack and make some jokes, and him and Chewie are going to get into some mildly comedic moments that are genuinely funny.
Yeah.
This film, every time they made an attempt at humor, it literally felt to me like I was either watching like a Saturday Night Live sketch that was like a parody of Star Wars, or it reminded me of, like, when the MTV Music Awards every year, they'll take like the year's biggest movies and they'll get like they'll get the same actors and they'll make it look like it's a scene from the movie.
Yeah, they'll do like an intro or something. Yeah, like something funny. Yeah.
That's exactly what every like attempt at humor that they had in this film felt like to me. It was like I just felt like I was watching one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It just felt so out of place.
I thought from the very beginning that I was watching Good Luck Charlie or something rather than a well-written Star Wars movie, or even a decent written Star Wars movie. Every setup from The Force Awakens was let down with a disappointment. From Rey handing Luke that lightsaber, which should have immediately springboarded into an iconic, teaching, and her learning the ways of the Force, and us seeing what an incredible Force or master of the Force that Luke Skywalker was. Us seeing what a powerful Jedi and master of the Force that he was. We didn't see that. No, we saw an old bum who grumpy, get out of here, throws the lightsaber. And then it was just horrible. It was the one thing that kind of gave me a red flag was when I was watching the trailer. They made the trailer look great, but there was one thing in there that concerned me. I saw an image of Luke Skywalker laying down on the ground like he was beaten, defeated, and Rey had a lightsaber held up to him. And I'm thinking, how in the world is this person who just learned the Force like a day ago, why is she standing over a Jedi Master, somebody who's supposed to be like the strongest character in the Star Wars galaxy? How in the world did this happen? And I thought, well, maybe there's going to be an explanation, but I got to be honest, at that point when I saw that, I thought, oh no, don't do it, don't go that way, don't do it, Disney.
Yeah. And I know the exact moment you're talking about from the trailer, and just like you, it kind of like raised a red flag. But in my mind, I was like, hopefully it's just taken out of context in the trailer, and it's just part of her training. It's just part of her, the intense training scene, and hopefully it has something to do with that. And it obviously was not.
Yeah.
We were meant to believe that. Rey was able to not even really learn the ways of the Force. They just kind of were there, but it's never explained why, and that she became this like master of the lightsaber just because.
Well, she and then she beat Kylo Ren. Now, remember, this movie took place like immediately after The Force Awakens. So she just beat Kylo Ren the day before. And now, maybe a day or two later, she's beating Luke Skywalker. What in the world is going on? That's horrible character development. That's a terrible story, character arc. That makes no sense whatsoever. And it's not a Disney thing, because I got to say, I really enjoyed the Rogue One. And I did enjoy The Force Awakens. When Rey beat Kylo Ren in the lightsaber battle, I didn't understand that, but I thought it was going to be explained. And here's how I thought that was going to be smoothed out. There's a book called Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it was actually the unofficial.
I've heard of it.
It was going to be it was possibly going to be the sequel to Star Wars. And actually, the reason why Han Solo was not in Splinter of the Mind's Eye is because Harrison Ford didn't renew the contract yet. So he wasn't contracted yet to be in the sequel. So this was going to basically be the sequel. There's a scene in there's a segment of that book where Luke is fighting Darth Vader with the lightsabers, and Vader does not take Luke seriously. He's going up against a Sith Lord, a master of the dark side of the Force, and there's this little punk kid with a sword, as far as Vader's concerned. He's Force sensitive. He's not even a Jedi yet. But Luke says something. Luke says, "I am Ben Kenobi," or makes a comment like that. He says, "I'm Ben Kenobi," and he's kind of talking to himself, as if he's realizing this. And Vader gets alarmed, and it says, I forget how it described it. I was 9 years old, I think, when I read this, or 10. But I remember Vader was actually kind of alarmed, or maybe even fearful, because all of a sudden Obi-Wan, as a Force spirit, was guiding Luke, guiding his actions. And I kind of thought that they were going to explain that that's how Rey was able to fight, to use the Force and actually fight and beat Kylo Ren. But that didn't happen. She didn't need to learn anything. She knew it all. So what's funny is that, like I said, it was a bad story. I could go on and on all night about the setups, without any payoffs, and how this movie fell short and disappointing myself and many fans. But there was this thing, Nate, and I don't know if you do much browsing on like YouTube and stuff when it comes to like movie reviews, but there was this thing where Mark Hamill, again, the actor who played Luke Skywalker, for any of our viewers who might not know that, but he was doing this, I call it the apology tour, with Rian Johnson afterwards. They're trying to promote The Last Jedi and convince us it's okay. Well, Mark Hamill actually said, I went to Ryan. Ryan's sitting there right beside him, and they're in front of an audience. He said, I went to Ryan, and I said, Ryan, shouldn't we do, this isn't going to go well with the fans, shouldn't we do what the fans want? And Ryan said, no, we need to tell the story that we want, not what the fans want. And there was a pause, and then there was an applause. And I'm thinking, why are you people applauding this? He just told you they don't care about what the fans want. They want to tell the story that they want to tell, and that's it. Just, screw the fans. They're going to do it their way. And I think that's a horrible thing to do.
Well, and I think one of the biggest missteps that Disney made was the decision to basically say, we're going to have 3 different directors, 3 different creative teams behind the new trilogy, and it's a free-for-all. You do what you want with Episode 7, you do what you want with Episode 8, you do what you want with Episode 9. That's fine if you want to have different teams and different writers and different directors, but I firmly believe that there should have been somewhat of an outline of where they wanted the story to go. Now, that's not, necessarily necessarily limiting, creative freedom. They could have allowed these directors and writers to create the story and tell the story they wanted to tell, but it amazes me that there wasn't at least some rules. Like, okay, you can do whatever you want in episode 8, but you can't kill Luke. You can do whatever you want in episode 7, but, Harrison Ford doesn't want to come back, so he has to die. So, which that was actually a thing with episode 7. So, I don't understand why with episode 8, Disney didn't have the thought to say, hey, you know what, you do whatever you want, but you can't do this and you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I think it was telling that, J.J. Abrams was pretty silent about episode 8 when it first came out. He didn't really talk about it much. He didn't do many interviews. And then actually recently when he started talking about it, and, he was polite. He didn't say anything bad about it necessarily. Of course, he is going to do episode 9. But he did comment and confirm that he did have plans and hopes in his mind of that Rey's parents were somebody, and they were somebody important, and he was hoping that would get worked out in the future. That he had bigger plans for Luke. That he had bigger plans for the
Snoke.
It's his name. Yes, Snoke.
Uh-huh.
His name's escaping me.
They built them up. They built them up.
Yeah. And what I liked about his comment, though, was at least as far as Rey goes and the parents and that whole storyline, he said that he essentially wasn't opposed to changing that in episode 9. Now, the way he worded it didn't say that he definitely would, and I know a lot of people that liked episode 8, they're really mad about that, him even suggesting that, which I have two things to say about that. One, it really wouldn't be that much of a stretch to do it, because at the end of the day, it could be as simple as him saying, hey, Kylo Ren lied to her and said her parents were nobody, and they were actually whatever, that this was actually her parents.
Right.
And number two, and this is the biggest thing, okay, the people that love that movie, I don't know, millennials maybe, I don't know, the people that love episode 8, anytime someone like you or I, with our opinion about it, would say something, they'd always go, well, it's okay because it was his movie and he can do what he wants, and you just can't accept that characters can change over time. But the point is that they had no problem with Rian Johnson coming in with episode 8 and saying, hey, screw everything that they did in episode 7. I'm doing it my way. If that's how they felt about that, then guess what? They need to also understand that it's okay for us to say, hey, screw Rian Johnson and what he did in episode 8. Hopefully they come in and fix all of it with episode 9. Or fix as much as, they could possibly fix.
Yeah. Now, I mean,
if you're okay with the changes made in episode 8, you have to be okay with them making changes in episode 9.
Right. I'm gonna take a break right now, only because when we come back, we're gonna finish up this part right here, only for the TV version, but we're gonna continue talking with Nate Ragon. So if you're watching the TV version, we'll be concluding this pretty soon. But go to Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel to see the show, this particular episode in its entirety. So with that, we'll be right back in 1 minute. Watch Chiller Night Theater and Chiller Chat every Saturday night on Stream TV. Chiller programming airs every Saturday night beginning at 9 p.m. through 3 a.m. Watch Jack Shadow host classic and not so classic horror and science fiction films of yesteryear on Chiller Night Theater. Then Brian Hogue hosts Chiller Chat, the weekly talk show that discusses paranormal activities, horror and science fiction movies, and mysteries beyond. If you like horror, science fiction, and the paranormal, Stream TV is the channel to watch every Saturday night. Go to streammedia.tv, that's streammedia.tv, to connect to Stream TV's Roku channel. Or watch Chiller programming online on Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel or at chillernighttheater.com. That's chillernighttheater.com. chillernighttheater.com. Okay, everybody, and that wraps this up for, we're going to thank Nate. Hey, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you doing the movie review with me. We're actually not done yet. We're going to wrap it up for the TV version of this particular episode. Thanks for joining us tonight. If you'd like to see the complete episode, tonight's episode, go to the YouTube, Chiller Night Theater YouTube channel and click on there to watch, or go to chillernighttheater.com and go to the Chiller Chat segment where you'll be able to find this episode. So with that, everybody, have a good night. Thanks for joining us, and catch us next week. Thanks.
How many times do I have to tell you, just because something isn't good doesn't mean it's bad?
Yeah, you say where J.J. Abrams said, he had some ideas. Rian Johnson took all those and threw them away as if they meant nothing. And I'll tell you what, I wasn't happy with that, because I'm not real happy with JJ. First of all, that was stupid. That was a dumb idea. That was amateurish. Yeah, the response that you said, that the one person said, oh, it's his movie, he can do what he wants. Well, I'm here to say, no, he shouldn't have been able to do that, because if you put a captain in control of a multi-billion-dollar vessel, and they're just out in the ocean, they say, well, I'm going to drive it toward, I'm going to take it into this iceberg, because that's what I want to do. And nobody on board would expect me to. I'll do exactly what they weren't expecting. There's a responsibility if you're in charge of something so big. I mean, that's bigger than he is. And he's at the helm of something that is a multi-billion-dollar industry. No, he cannot do whatever he wants to. And Kathleen Kennedy, who is head of Lucasfilms, she should have pulled the plug. But instead, she encouraged that. She encouraged that because of whatever agenda they're pushing. And I certainly don't mean to make this into a leaning political in any way. But you have to recognize, everybody has brought this up, all the political agendas that they threw into this film were just crazy. I didn't want to see that. I wanted to see a Star Wars movie. I didn't care about somebody's political agenda. I didn't care about SJW or, I didn't care about anything like that. In fact, you and I are probably, this isn't a political show. It'll never be a political show. But I would assume, you and I vary on political opinions. However, when it comes to our movies, a Star Wars movie, we go to see a good story. We just want to see lightsabers and spaceship battles and good versus evil and a well-written story. For multi-millions of dollars that went into the budget, you think they could have got that right.
Right.
And,
you also had, JJ also made a comment, which I wanted to, it kind of goes back to the original point earlier, but he did comment, and I don't know the exact quote that he made, so this is not me trying to quote him exactly, but he did say that, he was kind of kept waiting for Rian Johnson to contact him in during the writing process and the making process, not to say, hey, what should I do, but to say, hey, you set this up in The Force Awakens, where were you kind of planning on going with that?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts? Just to kind of give me an idea. He said he just waited for it and it never happened. And then the original director that was chosen for episode 9, Colin Trevorrow, he, after he was let go from directing it, he had made a lot of statements and saying that while episode 8 was being made, that Colin was reaching out to JJ, basically saying, "Hey, I'm kind of working on my story idea for episode 9. You set up all this stuff in episode 7. Can you give me some insight into that? Because I want to try to stay true to that." And he also tried to contact Ryan, and Ryan was basically like, "No, I'm not following anything that he did. I'm doing it this way." And what they're saying now is that the real reason that Colin, the rumored reason that Colin was no longer the director for episode 9 was because he didn't agree with the choices that he had found out that Ryan Johnson was making for episode 8. He did not. He wanted episode 9 to be Luke, like a lot of Luke, and Luke coming back full force, and he was basically begging him, "Do not kill Luke," and Ryan refused.
Right.
So there was a big disagreement there, which is why he left the project or was fired, whatever happened.
Right. Yeah, it's just amazing to me with the incredible budget that they had, that they couldn't get a more competent writer to make a decent story. It wasn't even a decent story. That's the thing. I remember telling the boys afterwards. We were walking out, and I said, writing 101. You don't have to be a great author. You don't have to, but if you even have the slightest degree of any type of inkling on how a story is written, beginning, middle, end, even if you have a potential sequel in mind, there are certain things that you do. But I think that they tried to say, we're just going to go opposite of what you think's going to happen. That shock value, the cutting Snoke in half, the Luke being a cowardly bum, Rey needing no training at all. She just it just uploaded like an app. I guess you don't need to train anymore as a Jedi.
Right.
And what interest is that? Imagine watching Rocky. Imagine watching a Rocky movie, and Rocky doesn't even need to train, or his training is old Mick giving him a few words of encouragement. That's his training, and then he goes up against a great fighter like Apollo Creed and beats him in the first 15 minutes of the movie, mind you. And then where do you go from there to make the story go full circle and make a decent story again? I just can't. And then when you criticize it, I've been seeing this a lot. A lot of the fans are getting attacked for even criticizing, expressing their opinions. J.J. Abrams even said that the fans who don't like The Last Jedi don't like it because they're threatened by strong women. Now, he made that comment, and I find that offensive because, no, you just had incompetent people at the helm, and now you're making excuses. It was a bad story.
Right, because after JJ's film, after The Force Awakens, I was all for it. I was like, I am ready for female Jedi, going crazy and being awesome. I'm ready for this. And then it wasn't until episode 8 that was like,
oh, they're doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even Wonder Woman, that was, look how big of a hit that was. That was and that had, of course, a female hero, but it made sense. You actually saw Diana go through her training process. You saw why she's such a good warrior. And then they did a backstory about her being a goddess, that she didn't even know that. They made sense. It made sense that she was so powerful. And with this story here, unless they're going to introduce something that has totally, like Rey's parent was, she's from the lineage of Obi-Wan or something. I don't even know. Or Obi-Wan sitting back controlling her, the example I gave you earlier about Splinter of the Mind's Eye. If she's being directly guided by a powerful Jedi, maybe. But I saw another powerful Jedi come back as a Force ghost, and he looked like kind of a comedic, goofy little guy, Yoda. I thought when they brought him back, I didn't think that was a dignified, powerful Jedi Master. I thought he was old, weird Yoda again, like in the beginning of Empire Strikes Back when it was the fake personality he was presenting to Luke, to test him.
Right.
It didn't even seem like Yoda. You know? So.
Yeah, and I mean, I understood the decision of them wanting to do, the actual puppet again, and to kind of make him more like he was in that film. But like you said, it was another moment in that film of many moments, one of many that just felt weird, strange, out of place. Something was just off with every character and scene in that film.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Even characters that are new, like, they're just, the scenes that they had, like, why was Finn even in the movie? It was like, they just completely wasted his character.
Right. Yeah, I thought so too. Is like, why was he even in it? His plot line, him and who's the other, Rose Tico, or what? I think that's her last name.
Yeah.
Their entire story didn't even make sense. It wouldn't have made any difference. In fact, I mean, it didn't make any difference whatsoever. None of that made sense. It was bad writing. It was bad writing from the beginning. And I'll tell you what, like I said, I think that Rian Johnson tried a lot of this. Well, you didn't see that coming. Oh, I shocked you here. Well, it's like saying, well, for my kid's birthday party, instead of frosting on the cake, I'm going to put sawdust. Because nobody expected that. And then when people eat it and don't like it and complain, you say, well, hey, we've done the cake thing with the icing already to death. I mean, that's been done. We needed to take this in a bold new direction. Well, driving off a cliff is a bold new direction. Doesn't mean it's the right one. You know what I mean? So
right.
I saw somebody else commented on this on Facebook. I welcome all comments. That's fine. Everybody has a voice, and that my particular voice is this show, and you're on here with me. You have your voice as well. And he said, but if Luke would have been a powerful Jedi and trained Rey, that story's already been done. That's as if that's the only avenue that they had to take with this story. It's like saying, well, I had to paint my kitchen green. Why? Because I already painted it orange. Like that's your only option. There was no other option to take. That doesn't make sense. But I don't know. Anything else to add on that? Because I'm gonna relate this to something else that's come up recently with the resurrection of some characters with another show that have come back onto the screen, a smaller screen, mind you, but have come back on the screen after 30 some years. That they did it right. So, any last words on The Last Jedi before we start talking about this other program?
No, I guess I'd just say that, overall, just to really simplify it, I have not watched it again since my initial viewing, and I'm okay with that. Like, I have no desire to see it again, and that's not me saying that, like I hated it so much I refuse to watch it. That's me genuinely saying, unlike every other Star Wars, even the prequels that were not great,
right?
I still am okay with watching them again. I've wanted to watch them again. I've revisited them several times. I honestly have no desire to revisit this film at all. Neither
have I. I left that theater and I have not had any interest whatsoever. In fact, this is kind of sad for me, but I will not be seeing Solo. I will not go and give Disney this business that did this and ruined this storyline. I will not give them one more penny. That means I will not rent The Last Jedi. I will not be seeing Solo. And it might be a good movie. But the fact that they ruined such an iconic character like Luke Skywalker in the way that they did it, and basically told all of us fans where we can shove all of our nostalgia, and I cannot support them. And that's a shame, because I really wanted to see that movie. When I heard they were doing it, I thought, okay, I don't have an issue with the actor or anything like that. And I don't have an issue with them going back in time and doing a young Han Solo and Chewbacca story. In fact, I had the books when I was growing up. Han Solo and the Lost Legacy, and Han Solo at Star's End, and Han Solo's Revenge. I had those books that I read back when I was a little kid. And I thought, that'd be neat. Those stories took place like years before A New Hope happened. So I was okay with the idea of seeing the Han Solo movie, but I will not be watching it. And that's a shame, because I've never missed a Star Wars movie in a theater since I was a little kid, 8, 9 years old. So, but one story I think that did get it right was the Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
On YouTube Red. There's a good example. And again, these are not complicated stories. They're not clever. They're not complicated. They are basically, you could sit down and pretty much see where they're going with everything. But it's still fun to watch. It's fun to watch because it's fun to watch the kid get picked on by the bullies, and how he develops into a little hero version of himself that's able to stand up for himself and take on the bullies and things like that. So these guys who did Cobra Kai, they were 3 guys, and I don't know their names, but they got together and they were huge fans of the movie, and I think that shows. Don't you? I mean, did you see it?
Yes. Yeah, I watched them all within 2 days.
Yeah, I binge watched that. There's nothing. There were a few twists and little surprises there. I was very pleasantly surprised with. You know what? I'll put the spoiler here. We did the spoiler for The Last Jedi, but we're gonna be talking about some spoilers here for Cobra Kai. And the only reason we're really doing this, and Nate and I discussed this before tonight, but is to compare. Just because you are reintroducing characters from 30 some years ago, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. The Last Jedi failed miserably in bringing back Luke Skywalker. They did. Cobra Kai, they did it right. They brought back Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso, and everyone's happy. Everyone watching this story, as kind of hokey as it is, that these guys are 50 years old, in their 50s, and they can't let this go, and they're dressing up in their karate gis and revisiting their childhood essentially. But it's good watching. It's rewarding to watch it. What did you think of it?
I loved it. I thought it was, I certainly didn't think it was going to be bad, but I never expected it to be as good as it was. And I think that was really the general consensus of everything that I've seen and read, is everybody was like, this show is basically better than it even has any right to be, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it seems to be getting universal acclaim. And going back to what you just said, I think that the reason you pointed out is exactly why. Everything that I've read, every interview I've seen, where there's a couple interviews out there with the original, creative people behind the original Karate Kid film, and then the people behind Cobra Kai. And like you said, and I believe in one interview they even said that the Karate Kid to them, it was like their Star Wars, growing up, that was their movie, and they so wanted to do right by it. They were so careful with every decision they made. They ran by ideas by everybody that was involved in the film, the actors, the writer, everything. They wanted to make sure it was perfect. And I think it shows that they had that dedication. They didn't just pull a Ryan Johnson and take it all and go, well, we don't care care what fans want to see, and we don't care what makes sense. We're just going to do what we want just because.
Yeah. Yeah, this is mine. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, though. They did something that was, and it does show, they listened to the actors. They got the feel of what the fans would want, because they, being super fans themselves, would want. It's something they would want to watch. You know, and so it turned out very rewarding to watch. Like I said, there's nothing complicated about the story. We all have a general idea of what's going to happen, or, you know, the kid's going to overcome the bully, or that type of thing. It's just a rewarding experience watching that character development. It's not difficult. And Ryan, you know, they shouldn't have had that much trouble with Star Wars, but these guys hit the nail on the head, I thought. The only thing, my only complaint with it, I have two complaints. My one complaint is that I feel that some of the humor really would be, I didn't think was suited for little kids. Like, you could sit and watch the Karate Kid movies with your children comfortably.
Right.
And in this, I thought some of the humor, I was uncomfortable with it, as far as if you were going to sit there and watch it with a child. I didn't think it was.
Right.
Some of that humor was inappropriate, and that was my only complaint. Other than my second biggest complaint is I gotta wait to watch season 2.
Yes.
With that big cliffhanger, you know.
Yes. And you know, I think, like, to your first complaint, I agree 100%. And at the same time, I get their thought process behind that decision. I feel like they looked at it as, you know what, we're not making this series for children. We're making this series for the kids that are now adults, that were, you know, so into that movie. That's who's going to be watching this. That's who we're making this for. So I feel like that, and that's how I kind of accepted it as, okay, you know what, they didn't make this for my 7-year-old kid. They made this for me.
Yeah, that's a neat way of looking at it. I suppose if you look at it like that, yeah. It was funny, you know.
Yeah.
The humor that it was funny. It was a little shocking to me, thinking, oh man, is this for? Maybe there is an age restriction on there, or require, or suggestion, and maybe I didn't notice that, but I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I can't wait to see season 2. Again, it's not rocket science. It's not even all that clever of storytelling, but it's rewarding. It's like saying, you know, Superman going up against Lex Luthor. Yeah, he's going to win at the, you know, there are certain things that you are going to see and expect and be right about in the movie. And that's like Cobra Kai. But when you actually see it in play, and you see these characters coming back, and you see Johnny Lawrence, you know, these kids are being bullied. I thought that was interesting. They're being bullied, so who do they get to help them? The biggest bully who was in his school growing up, himself. He was the biggest bully, and he's actually teaching them to go against their bullies. Even though he hasn't moved on from that big giant in his life, losing that match. But here's an interesting thought about this. You know, at the end of The Karate Kid, Johnny Lawrence does take a character change, and so that he grabs the trophy. He's the one who handed the trophy to Daniel.
Yeah.
He said, Daniel, here you go. You're all right. And he applauded Daniel, and he cheered Daniel on. He was happy for him. Here's where I think the change occurred. You tell me what you think. When we are watching Cobra Kai, and Johnny and Daniel are sitting there having their, you know, their drinks and talking, and Johnny tells him about Kreese, you know, the bad sensei, you know, who trained him. He said that he looked at him as a father figure, you know, and he was a very important, probably the most important, other than his mother, person in his life at that time. Well, then at the beginning of the Karate Kid Part 2, Kreese, you know, basically stabs him in the back. He goes out there and squashes and breaks his spirit. What's he do? He tells him he's a loser, and he takes his trophy, his second place trophy, which anybody would be happy to have at a big tournament like that, and he breaks it and he throws it away. And I think that's the moment where it all fell apart for Johnny. I don't think it was when he lost the fight, even though they show that. I think it was when Kreese went and did what he did, because he totally shoved Johnny's heart and soul into the ground at that point. And I don't think he recovered from that. Not losing the fight, I think he'd never recovered from what Kreese did to him. That's just my thought.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I agree. And I had actually totally forgotten about that scene in part 2 until they had kind of replayed it in Cobra Kai. I said, oh yeah, then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was originally part of the ending of the first one, and they had cut that scene. They chose to end it with him holding up the trophy, and then they reused it at the beginning.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Huh.
But yeah, Cobra Kai was, and to kind of compare it like to Star Wars, because it was bringing these iconic characters back after 30 plus years. It was 10 episodes, 30 minutes each. So basically looked at it as like a 5-hour movie.
Yeah.
That was such an easy 5-hour watch compared to the 2.5 hours of The Last Jedi.
That's a very good point. I never even thought about that. But yeah, because I wanted to sit there and I wanted to watch the next episode. Couldn't wait. And The Last Jedi, I just couldn't wait to get out of there. But you know what? If they would have had season 2 available, I would have binge watched that. So there could have been 10 hours of it.
Yep.
But there's to illustrate our point, what we're talking about, the right way and the wrong way. The Last Jedi was the wrong way. Cobra Kai was the right way. Obviously, you're going to have differences of opinion. We all recognize that before I get an onslaught of comments on YouTube or Facebook or wherever. We get it. Everyone's got an opinion. This is ours, and it's not only ours. Nate and I, but tons and tons of fans out there are, disheartened by what they saw with The Last Jedi, and tons of fans are rejoicing in the reviews of Cobra Kai. So storytelling makes a difference. Imagine that.
Yeah, and actually taking time and effort and care into staying true to the source material.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're actually coming up on almost an hour. We did the first part of the episode for the TV version. I could actually very simply, I could make this into its own episode. So maybe I'll do that as well. But you can watch the entire episode in its entirety on YouTube, on Chiller Night Theater's YouTube channel, and also at chillernighttheater.com. Chiller Night Theater, of course, is our the companion show where we watch old classic horror movies and not so classic, hosted by Jack Shadow. So, Nate, is there anything else?
No, I think we covered both topics pretty well. Like you said, we have to end it at some point because the discussion of The Last Jedi could go on for hours.
Yeah, and my enthusiasm with the Cobra Kai could actually go on for hours in a positive way, I think. But I tell you what, I appreciate you being on the show tonight, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me, and I appreciate all you viewers watching the show, and thank you for joining us tonight. Another episode of Chiller Chat, and join us next week. Everyone, have a good night.